Yo, what is good, people? Ben from Brother of Tech, and we are back with another video. This time, camera comparison: OnePlus Nord 4 versus the CMF Phone 1 versus the Nothing Phone 2A. We're just pretty much seeing how they're priced up from 209 to 329, 429 MSRP. How much you need to spend to get extra camera performance when it comes to the videos and photo side of things. So we are in lovely, sunny Italy, Milan to be specific, and we're pretty much going to be testing out the daylight, low light photos and videos to pretty much see how they are. So kick back, relax, and let's get into this camera comparison. Now, the best way to watch this camera comparison is at the highest resolution and frame rate at 4K 60 FPS with headphones on the largest display possible so you can hear the audio switching. There will be chapters linked in the description below, but definitely kick back, relax and watch this as it will be a detailed one. I do want to mention that the OnePlus Nord 4 does have video stabilization on the front facing camera when recording in video. It's just not on by default. You do have to press the photo icon at the top of the camera UI. It does narrow the field of view and does apply electronic video stabilization. For whatever reason, it's not on by default. When I tried to record this and bring it into my editing software, it just was glitching and it just wasn't showing how I wanted it to. So I'm going to show it as an offline B-roll. But yeah, it does work, and I just wanted to be fair to the Nord 4 to showcase this properly. We are now recording in the 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recorder mode on a rear camera on the Nord 4, CMF 1 and the Nothing Phone 2A. As you can see, the scene in Italy, Milan, is looking beautiful. And we're just seeing how the image quality is like. Colors, detail, dynamic range, and of course, video stabilization. Let's just do a quick run. Absolutely scenes. So we are now recording with the ultra-wide angle camera on the Nord 4 versus the ultra-wide angle camera on the Nothing Phone 2A. Now, the CMF Phone 1 does not have an ultra-wide angle camera, so already you're seeing the price difference on what you're getting with the other phones. The difference here is on the Nord 4, the ultra-wide angle camera is limited to 1080p 30, while on the Nothing Phone 2A, it does actually allow you to record in 4K 30 on the ultra-wide. This is very impressive. So as we look, you can see the ultra-wide perspective on the Nord and the Nothing Phone 2A is a lot better compared to the CMF Phone 1. That is the advantage that you get here. You can't switch between them on the fly to the main camera. You have to stop recording and then switch over, but you can still take pictures and pause and continue on the same clip. This is a great advantage that you have with having an ultra-wide angle camera on the Nord 4 as well as the Nothing Phone 2A. A wild Uncle Techspert there, no introduction needed, of course. And we are in sunny Milan. Quick run. So we are now recording in the 60 FPS video recorder mode on the Nord 4 versus the Nothing Phone 2A and the CMF Phone 1. Now, the advantage you have here on the Nord 4, you do have the ability to record in 4K 60 FPS. This is so surprising for a sub £500 phone to have such a feature, even on just the main camera, whereas the others are limited to 1080p 60, which is expected at this price point. So this is a very good look from OnePlus. Let's do a quick run up. So we're now recording on an ultra-wide angle camera on the Nord 4 and Nothing Phone 2A. Of course, the CMF Phone 1 does not have an ultra-wide camera, but this is where things get a bit interesting. The Nord 4's ultra-wide camera for video is limited to just 1080p 30. You can't do any form of 60 FPS even at 1080p. Whereas the Nothing Phone 2A actually does allow you to do 1080p 60 on the ultra-wide. So it's always very interesting to find out how these companies prioritize their features for video. So thought I would just let you know so you can see the difference. So we are now recording in a 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recording mode on the rear camera on the Nord 4, the CMF Phone 1 and the Nothing Phone 2a. What we've done now is place me in the frame as a subject and just seeing how it handles it as well as the environment. Of course, we get the sun, so we can really test dynamic range and see how it handles highlights as well as shadow detail while still maintaining a good image quality. So we are now recording in the 60 FPS video recording mode on the Nord 4 versus the CMF Phone 1 and the Nothing Phone 2a. Again, the difference is the Nord 4 does give you the option to do this in 4K UHD, whereas the other two are limited to 1080p. You can really see what the detail difference is, as well as how it handles it with the higher frame rate when it comes to dynamic range, detail, and also colors. In this particular situation, with me in the frame as a subject. So we are now recording in the 1080p 30 frames a second video recorder mode on a front-facing camera on the Nord 4, the CMF Phone 1 and the Nothing Phone 2a. We're basically testing the low light performance to see how they handle in low light for the front-facing camera in 1080p 30. We've got Darius here helping, of course.
Let's go, baby.
Let's get here. We are in sunny Milan, still nice and warm. Chilled and cool at night time.
Come on, warm. It's amazing, man. Look,
You know
it's
it.
not raining. It's 30 plus.
Come on.
Come on. Let's go.
And subscribe to Darius Tech, you know it. So we are now recording in the 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recorder mode on the main rear cameras on the Nord 4 from OnePlus, CMF Phone 1 and the Nothing Phone 2a. And we're just seeing how the low light performance is in low light in 4K 30 on the rear cameras. Let's just see how the exposure changes. Point it to the lamps to see how they handle lens flare. And all the cityscapes that we're seeing in Milan. So we are now recording in a 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recorder mode on the main rear camera on the Nord 4 from OnePlus, CMF Phone 1, as well as the Nothing Phone 2a. Again, this is low light performance with me in the frame as a subject, and we're just basically seeing how it handles it in low light with the environment as well as myself in this particular situation. Now that we've gone through the videos, let's analyze the photos between the OnePlus Nord 4, the CMF Phone 1 and the Nothing Phone 2a. We're going to start with the daylight images with landscape shots without me in the frame as a subject. And we're comparing the prices: $209 on the CMF Phone 1, $329 for the MSRP on the Nothing Phone 2a, which you obviously can get cheaper because it's been out for a little while, and $429 starting price for the Nord 4 from OnePlus. It's going to be interesting how the camera improvements are for photos, as you've seen for videos as mentioned. Now, we're looking at this from the ultra-wide, and of course, this is something that the OnePlus Nord 4 and the Nothing Phone 2a have. The CMF Phone 1 does not have an ultra-wide angle camera, so already, this is where you're getting. Now, we're looking at the images in terms of the field of view, very good on both the Nothing Phone 2a and the Nord 4, so the advantage goes to those two phones when it comes to this, and the image saturation is very balanced on the Nord 4, where it is going for a much more saturated look, especially with the blues in the sky on the Nothing Phone 2a. Now, when we move over to the main wide sensor at 1x, it now matches all the focal lengths, including the CMF Phone 1. And again, things are very consistent on a OnePlus Nord 4. Whereas the Nothing Phone 2a is going for a slightly more saturated look, whereas things are a lot more balanced in terms of the image processing on the Phone 1 from CMF. So very interesting, but the details actually very good on all of them. I really like that. Now 2x, now we're doing a digital crop on the main wide sensor, and of course there isn't a dedicated telephoto as we're looking at, and it's very interesting how the image processing is. I really do like how the Nord 4 is keeping things nice and balanced, but the stylistic look of the Nothing Phone 2a is actually really nice when we're looking at the foliage in this building, which is actually just a very nice and interesting building in Milan. So it was great to have not just sun, but just interesting landscapes like this to shoot with. God, how we suffer in the UK when it comes to the weather not being great, even during the summertime. So yeah, I've definitely got to give it to the Nothing Phone 2a. But again, most people will like the balanced look of the OnePlus Nord 4 and the CMF Phone 1. It's not doing too bad, but it does seem a bit washed out. But again, for that price, what's to be expected and given? Now, 5X is now still in the digital mode, and the digital processing that you're getting on the CMF Phone 1 compared to the others is very degraded, and again, it is expected. The Nothing Phone 2a does hold up quite well, but yeah, the Nord 4 is really doing a good job here. I really like what I'm seeing. And then going into the 10x mode, again, the image really does fall apart on the CMF Phone 1, and the Phone 2 actually holds on a bit better than I was expecting. But yeah, it's the Nord 4 all the way. And even when you push to the 20x, which it does have, that's when it really starts falling apart. So again, in good light, I'm really surprised. The Nord 4 is doing a very good job here. So good luck on it, OnePlus. Let's switch to the front-facing camera with some selfie images across the board. And right now in this particular situation, I think with the sun being against me, it's a really tough one on all of them. I would say that I like the Nord 4 the most out of all of them, as it doesn't seem the most washed out. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. I feel like it's overdone my skin tone a bit too much on the Nord 4, but again, it's harsh sunlight. And then the Phone 2a actually holds up to be a good balance between the two. I'll probably say if it wasn't as washed out as I was expecting, it's something that would come through much nicer on the Nothing Phone 2a. But yeah, it's looking good. Now, portrait mode. When we go into portrait mode, this is a particular one where it looks good, where it comes across the edge detection. I would say that the Nord 4 is actually blurring out really well, but the CMF Phone 1, yeah, that's one that actually cleans up shop really well. I really like it, actually slightly more than the Nothing Phone 2a. So just something to consider. And the last shot of rear images with me in the frame as the subject. And of course, again, the advantage that you have on the Nord 4 and the Nothing Phone 2a is the ultra wide. And in this particular situation, I do like what I'm seeing on the OnePlus Nord 4 as well as the Nothing Phone 2a. So advantage goes there. Let's move up to the same focal length with the wide. And of course, with this particular situation, Nothing Phone 2a is struggling with the light, but it's actually balancing out and managing my skin tones really well. Whereas obviously the shadow detail on the Nord 4 is a bit lower, but it's a much more balanced toned image. Whereas the CMF Phone 1 does blow things out a little bit more. Now 2x, of course, coming into the detail, I really like what I'm seeing on the Nothing Phone 2a, then followed by the Nord 4, whereas I do like the color balance on the Nord 4, and the CMF Phone 1 actually holds detail really well, but it is still a bit more washed out than expected. But again, at that price, you gotta just forgive it for what you're getting. And now we're going into portrait mode, where we're really gonna be looking at things like edge detection. And when it comes to this, I really like all of them, but I would actually say the Nord 4 is the one that holds up best out of the two. And the natural blur really does come into play really, really well. And of course, when we go into the 2x mode, yeah, the Nord 4, especially around my head, still holds well. And then it comes into play with the Nothing Phone 2 and the CMF Phone 1. Let's turn off the lights and look at some low light images between the Nord 4 from OnePlus, CMF Phone 1 and the Nothing Phone 2a. And of course, what I tend to try and do with mine is, if you've been here for the first time and you're enjoying this camera comparison, of course, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Road to 100K for 2024 and beyond. Hopefully we can get this here, if not no later than mid next year, 2025. I try and do my nighttime shots without night mode first, and then with night mode after, and where flash is applicable. The only reason why is to really show the difference in processing time and image quality improvement with night mode. One thing I will say is, with these phones, I don't think they really ever turn off night mode. I feel like night mode is always on. Even though there's a dedicated night mode icon for the moon on the CMF and the Nothing phones, and a dedicated night mode option on the OnePlus, I feel like they're never really off. So just take that into account if you don't see much of a difference. Of course, starting with the ultra wide with the Nord 4 and the Nothing Phone 2a compared to the wide, we can really see that the ultra wide angle camera is really struggling low light. So I wouldn't recommend it. When we move over to the main wide sensor, this is where things come into play really nicely when it comes to the image quality improvements. And that's something that you're really seeing on the Nothing Phone 2a. I think that looks the cleanest, then followed by the Nord 4 and then the CMF Phone 1. When we go into the 2x mode, in this particular situation, it is a tough one. I wouldn't really recommend using the 2x mode on any of them. So let's see if things improve when we activate night mode. When we go into night mode, again, I don't really see much of a difference in this particular situation, so just bear that in mind as we come into play with this. Now, when we go into the main wide sensor, again, I would say the Nothing Phone 2a is the one that really shows best improvements with night mode active, but the rest really doesn't seem much different to before. And of course, 2x mode, again, I'm not really seeing much of a difference, and I pretty much suspect it's the same mode. It's almost like a placebo effect, so just take that into account. Now, when we go into the front-facing camera with the selfies, we will see a bit more of a difference here. Without night mode active and just taking it normally, I would say that the CMF Phone 1 takes the biggest hit, but the other two pretty much are on par with each other. I would say I prefer the Nothing Phone 2a because it doesn't really produce like a reddish skin tone to my skin colors, so just something to take into account. And when night mode is active, you can see that things really do improve a bit better on the CMF Phone 1, but for the other two, it's near enough the same. So take that into account. Front screen flash, I would say that the exposure on the Nord 4 is a lot brighter, but the stylistic look is much nicer on the CMF Phone 1, whereas things balance out to be even on the Nothing Phone 2a. Now, portrait mode. Portrait mode on the front-facing camera, this is pretty much what we're getting. And it's one of those limitations where, unlike the flagships where you can do much more with them, this is what you're pretty much working with. And of course, you do have the front screen flash, but you can't use night mode. And the illumination of the brightness on the Nord 4 is really good, but it's still very aggressive. And I would say the balance on the CMF Phone 1 on this one is actually the one that wins it with the portrait flash for the front facing camera. Last set of low light images with the rear camera with me in the frame as the subject, and of course without night mode active. Again, I think it's really just a placebo effect. The advantage that you do have with the ultra-wide that you do not get on the CMF Phone 1 goes to the Nord 4 as well as the Nothing Phone 2a, with the Phone 2a producing a better image. When we move over to the main wide sensor, in this particular situation here, this is what we're pretty much working with when it comes to the image quality, and the exposure really improves on the Nord 4. It's a really bright and clear image. I would say definitely prefer that one. Now 2x mode, again, the detail on the CMF Phone 1 is really low, whereas the detail on the Nothing Phone 2a, yeah, really up there as my preferred shot in 2x. Now night mode active, again, it's really going to be hard to tell the difference, and it's something that you wouldn't really see when it comes to the ultra wide. So the wide potentially, but again, it doesn't look any different to my previous images, so just something to bear in mind. And as we go into the 2x mode, this is pretty much the situation where we've got decent detail, but again with night mode, it does have an exposure advantage, but it's really hard to tell if I'm going to be honest with you. And then we'll go into using a flash. The advantage is you can use the ultra wide and flash together on the OnePlus Nord 4 as well as the Nothing Phone 2a, which is great for group pictures at low light if you want to use the flash. Exposure on there is really good across the board. I like the stylistic look of the Nord 4. And when we go into the main wide sensor, the detail with the flash on the Nothing Phone 2a is definitely preferred, whereas I like the stylistic look and exposure around the Nord 4, but the detail does drop, whereas you do gain good detail on the Nothing Phone 2a, as well as decent one on the CMF Phone 1. And then the 2x flash mode, again, they kind of all fall apart, but the best here probably is the Nothing Phone 2a. Portrait mode for the last set. In low light, we do have good edge detection, and I just like the natural look of the blur on the OnePlus Nord 4, so much preferred, then followed by the Nothing Phone 2a and the CMF Phone 1. Obviously in the 2x mode, all of them fall apart, so very careful here as you cannot use the flash or night mode. Now that is the roundup for this camera comparison between the Nord 4 from OnePlus, the CMF Phone 1 and the Nothing Phone 2a. It's really interesting to see the price gap differences and what lacks and what the improvements are. Such as not having OIS, it does affect it when it comes to the video performance on the CMF Phone 1. So if that is something that matters to you as well as for photos, definitely consider that. And in fact, how the Nothing Phone 2a and the Nord 4 trade blows when it comes to photos and especially videos is very interesting. Like, it's still surprising to me that they've done 4K 60 on the main camera on the Nord 4. But again, the 60 FPS option that you get on the ultra wide is a great advantage for the Nothing Phone 2a, as well as the ability to record 4K 30 on the ultra wide. So take that into consideration. What are your thoughts on this camera comparison? Let me know in the comment section below. That's it for me, Ben from Lover of Tech. If you enjoy videos like this, you know exactly what to do. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're part of Team TLS, the Tech Lover Squad, so you don't miss any future videos on the channel. I hope you're all safe during this time. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.